Okay, let's go next to Art, who's listening in Green Bay. Hi, Art.
Hey, Patrick. I love your show. I love you, and I love Relevant Radio. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Happy to hear it.
I do. I have a bit of criticism, though, and
I knew there was a but in there somewhere. I knew it because you were so nice. I love you. I love Relevant Radio, but okay, I'm bracing myself, Art. I'm ready. Let fly.
Well, I've listened for a long time, and it seems like during Advent and Lent, some of the calls take a predictable direction where people just get bent around the axle. And
they get what?
They just get bent around the axle about certain things about our faith. They just focus on the dot. And things like that used to make me mad. But now they just make me sad.
Give me an example so I can understand what you mean.
Oh, well, for instance, around Lent, you get lots of calls about, I just went to dinner at a friend's house and they served a beef-based soup and I ate it. And do I need to go to confession? And people just get really bent out of shape about something really, really small.
Well, I don't know that it's really, really small. First of all, take this into account, Art. First of all, in the Latin Rite, in the Catholic Church, our fasting and penitential customs are so minimal and easy compared to what most of the rest of the Universal Church experiences. So take like the Eastern Catholic churches, the Byzantine Church, during Great Lent, and this is true of the Orthodox churches as well, they go entirely meatless all Lent. There are many things that they do without, and we have it very easy by comparison. So the reason I'm bringing this up, Art, is that it's such a minimal basic thing that the church asks of us, that during Lent on Fridays that we not eat any meat and that we fast on, it's just Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, and Good Friday. That's it. It's so minimal. It's so little. So if a Catholic can't even do that, and maybe won't even do that because I was hungry and I wanted to eat the meat, that is actually a serious sin because it's flouting the church's authority. And the church recognizes that this is something that, Catholics need to be better instructed on, but it's not straining at gnats. It's not, majoring in the minors and minoring in the majors. This is actually a practice that all Catholics are obliged to, within a certain age range, of course, and assuming that you're healthy, but to say, I'm not going to do that, that is a big deal, not a little deal, if you ask me, Art.
Well, if everything is kept within the framework of keeping the main thing, that's true, but not to the degree that it steals people's peace. And especially in a post-Christian society like ourselves, when people get bent out of shape about missing one day in a novena, or if they wonder about whether or not they prayed a rosary correctly, that's not keeping the main thing.
But those are not analogous. Those are not analogous, though. So in the case of not eating meat on Fridays during Lent, that is something that the church has the right to command us to do. And for somebody to just blow that off and say, I'm not going to do it, that is a matter of sin. There's no question about that. But for people to be, whether they're scrupulous or they're just overly sensitive or finicky, and they are concerned, maybe I'm saying the rosary wrong, that's not a matter of sin. That would be where they're overly concerned about something that is not sinful. And so, we want to help in that regard, but we don't lump both things in together. We don't say people who are concerned about praying the rosary the right way and people who are just flouting the church's custom of not eating meat on Fridays during Lent. That's apples and oranges. We don't want to put those in the same category.
But would you agree that around certain times of the year, especially around Advent and Lent, you notice that the callers into your program take a less peaceful tone and they really hone in on some minutia without keeping the main thing?
Well, I have never thought of that, so you're raising a question I've never really considered, and it may be the case. You may be exactly right. But what of it? Shouldn't we have compassion on people and try to help them? And isn't it a good thing, Art, that they call in and they get those misconceptions cleared up? I would think that would make you happy.
It does, but It does, but it makes me sad that I know the relevant radio listeners are the best of the best and the best seekers there are of truth, and I fall short myself. Don't misunderstand, but we just in today's society, the people who listen to relevant radio need to be the beacons of hope. And they need to be the bearers of light and the good news of our Savior, Jesus.
I agree.
And when we get bent around the axle about these small things, it does not draw people into the truth and the beauty and the goodness of Jesus and our faith.
So let me agree wholeheartedly with you, Art, number one. So number two, then isn't it a good thing that they call and they get their axle unbent, or they get unwrapped around the axle when they call in and they find out, oh, praying the rosary this way, I thought it might be wrong. I found it's not wrong. There's a liberation there. So isn't it a good thing, in light of what you're saying, that people call in and get those misconceptions cleared up?
Yeah, my guess is that sometimes they leave more steamed and with more information to aggressively pursue the people they're in the wrong-hearted argument with, when it's a conversion of heart. Like our Blessed Mother said, she ponders those things in her heart. I think maybe sometimes in the zeal for apologetics, we forget the better part, which is the things that should come from the heart.
I don't disagree with you, but don't forget, Jesus says, if you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in great things. If you are unfaithful in little things, you will be unfaithful in big things. So Luke chapter 16, beginning of verse 10 is where you can read that. So I hear what you're saying, but there is something to be said for fidelity in these little things, as Jesus himself said. And if somebody has an attitude, and I'm not imputing this to you, Art, you may or may not have this attitude, I don't know. But for somebody who says, you know what, the little things, who cares? God doesn't really care about that. He doesn't care if I fast for an hour before I receive communion. He doesn't really care if I, eat meat on Friday during Lent. Those are just little things. I would say Jesus is really clear about the little things being important, because big problems can arise if you have little, cut corners in little ways. Eventually, you're going to cut big corners. And so that's the approach I take. I think maybe, Art, we can at least agree that if somebody is so wrapped up in the minutiae, as you put it, and they've lost focus and they don't think about, much less attend to the really big things, that's a real problem. I agree. But I don't think the solution to that problem is to tell people that the little things don't matter. Could we agree on that?
I think we agree on most everything we've discussed, and our ultimate aim is the same, and that's just for more people to love Jesus and to love each other. I agree. So I appreciate all you do. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for the spirit in which you shared this concern. I appreciate that very much, Art. As long as we're at it, we're going to take a break, but let me just quote to you that passage in its entirety. This is Luke 16:10. He who is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much, and he who is dishonest in a very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? Important stuff to think about, I think. Let us take a break, and we'll come right back with more of your phone calls. This is the Patrick Madrid Show on Relevant Radio and the Relevant Radio app.
For more of the Patrick Madrid Show, visit relevantradio.com/Patrick.